G'day, Rose. G'day, one girl. How are you guys? We'll go with that one. I think that's a good one. How are you girls today? I'm good. I'm good. Running a little behind. I got up early and think, I wanted to beat the rain because it's meant to rain today. And I was looking at the forecast. It was going to kind of hit right about where my walk would have ended. So I wanted to make sure I got it in before I get wet. So then I got home and got distracted, and then now I'm here. But good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever your time zone, guys. Thank you so much for being here. For this is my attempt throughout the month of November, aka MOvember, to approach and address men's health and uh help to raise monies and whatever we can to be here to help each other out. Not just from, obviously we do that all the time, but this is obviously Movember is focused on men's health. So no offense to anybody of another gender. We just want to kind of give us 30 days to help to be here for men to hopefully find a place where they can feel comfortable enough to talk. Kind of the things I like about being on Twitch or a streaming platform is there's anonymity that can be given to all those involved. So unless you want your name and self known, it's completely up to you to do so. But people have very few people have seen my face, know my real name or identity, and that's mainly because when I started, I was in a position with a job role that kind of was demanding of it. I wasn't able to be publicly viewed or seen. Um, so I took on this persona of what you see as Elder Wolf, and he's kind of grown on me. So I can't see a day of streaming without him nowadays. So I pray that the program never ends. Although the program has been superseded with the new one, this one still works, which I'm glad. I'm thankful for. I like old things that still work. But sometimes you got to stay with the OGs. This one doesn't require subscriptions and all the other stuff that the newer ones do. But I don't know if I did all the. Let me give myself a second here to. Okay, there we go. Yes, and for complete disclosure for those that are involved or questioning, I am not a qualified counselor. I do not have any credentials other than life experiences, and therefore anything that I discuss or talk about is just purely on my opinion. If you guys that are watching and they're participating in anything that I'm doing, could take anything from it and it benefits and betters their lives, then thank you. I'm glad I could be a part of that. I don't care for the credit. You don't need to give me credit. I just like to know that I've done something nice to help others. So that's always been my goal. My focus is just to do right by people. You know, the golden rule applies to all people of faith and all backgrounds. So it should always be that. But I hope you guys are doing well. Anyways, today. I thought I'd work a little bit on a thing called self awareness, and that was something that I kind of. It was a bit of an emotional maturity for me. I think when I started realizing that I was becoming more aware of my emotions. And it's coming that some of that's gone through workshopping, through other programs that I've participated in, um, either via the military, through and not knocking the U.S. military has some amazing programs, especially through the chaplaincy departments. If you are active military or post military and you have access to VA, that sort of stuff, I do recommend that you look into what they have available. The chaplaincy programs are probably some of the best programs um, long before they you know, as we know it today. You know, we see it so much today now, is that everybody you know, they talk about mental health. Mental health has been an issue for a long time, but I think the US military has always been on top of it long before that, through the stuff, through the chaplaincy programs. So yeah, I was fortunate enough at the time that I kind of had a chance to go discover a few things. And you know, becoming self-aware is something that as young people we don't really necessarily know. I don't think we're still learning through our emotional maturity. That's a step in life that we kind of have to work through, either actively. Well, I found that through it was active participation that I kind of became more aware of it. So um but it took time. It wasn't something in my 20s I didn't know anything about it. You know, as I got older, it wasn't until probably, you know what, to be honest with you, I think the only time that I really became fully aware was my near death experience of having a heart attack at 47. It was a wake up call in my life that I didn't even wasn't even aware of. You know, I was in a pretty pretty unstable relationship. Things that were motivating weren't things that were motivating me because I wanted to be motivated. They were things that I was trying to do, always trying to please others. That was me. I've always been that sort of person that always tried to please others. And so, and that sort of thing kind of made me aware of all of a sudden, you know, I left nothing for myself. Although I would tell myself I'm doing it because, I want to make people happy, but I forgot about my own happiness at the time. I forgot about what was making me me, and you can do that so easily if you're not careful. You can kind of lose yourself in others and trying to be there for so many other people, and with all the best intentions. It's a saying we grew up hearing a lot. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, and we always have the best intentions to be there for others, and that sort of thing, and try to be nice to others, and but that's just a common practice. Being nice to others. Um, but at the same time, it's being aware of the fact that we're not doing it because I want something out of it. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. And that's the sort of thing that we kind of have to keep reminding ourselves. If you're the sort of person that has a genuine concern, a genuine care, a genuine sort of um, sort of belief system, a positive belief system, I think you generally most people tend to find the need, or find the desire to do right by others, and that's so important. Um, I don't know if it's good for us in saying that. I don't know if it's I don't know. Like I said, it wasn't until I think probably when I had my heart attack. It was first off, it was unexpected. It wasn't even. I had no idea. Had no sort of warning signs. Nothing. It was just, and it wasn't like you see in the movies where I grasp my arm and fall to the ground in breathing pain. No, it was one day I'm at work and I just come off of 2 weeks holidays, um, 2 weeks vacation and stuff like that, and I was doing my cleaning job at the night before, and I was cleaning, and all of a sudden I felt this weird feeling. It's just kind of this sort of crushing pain in my chest, up into my throat, and I thought maybe I was just getting sick. I never thought the thought of a heart attack never crossed my mind. Like I said, I was crossfitting, I was doing my thing, I was fit, healthy. At least I believed I was healthy, and and then all of a sudden, I went through. I had some sort of episode while I'm at work, and I was like, okay, let it pass. Did my thing, finished my cleaning, went home, slept through the night, got up the next morning, went to work my normal day job, but did my thing. We were working at a local church that day, and we were doing the lawns and and gardens and stuff, and and it happened again, and I thought, okay, I must be coming down with the flu or some sort of bug or something like that. I had no idea. And so I booked an appointment with my GP, my doctor that afternoon, straight after work. So straight after work, I went straight to saw him, and I no more got a butt cheek in his chair, and he pushed me straight out. Said, "You need to go straight to the emergency room. I'll call ahead. Let him know you're on your way." I'm like, "Huh?" So I went straight to the emergency room, and luckily one of the triage nurses was also a CrossFit buddy of mine. And she grabbed me by the hand. She says, "Come here, let's have a chat." So she pulled me into the room straight away. Again, I went to administration so quick, so fast. Something you never even heard of. I've been in the emergency room numerous times in my life and thought to myself, normally you'd be sitting there for hours waiting to be seen for a broken arm or something, that's happened, whether it's yourself or a family member or something. And no, I got in quick, smart. Like, this is crazy how fast it went. Um, And so I'm in the room, they're hooking me up to machines and they're taking blood and they're doing all sort of stuff. And uh, next thing I know, I get a visit from the doctor. And sure enough, apparently I've been having a heart attack a couple episodes. So they found some enzymes in my blood work that kind of indicated enzymes that only kind of drop or that are released into the bloodstream when you've actually had that sort of, those sort of, well, I guess it's a type of damage or something that occurs to the muscles. Um, I don't even know if I have photos I could show you. So I got seen straight away, and when I got seen, they talked about obviously the next course of action would be to do what's called an angiogram. So if you guys don't know what angiogram is, that's where they kind of go into well, traditionally they go up through your groin into one of the major arteries, and they have a little camera that tracks up through there, and they go up to the heart, the veins, the arteries that actually feed the heart itself. And it's an interesting thing that occurs while the person's obviously still alive. And this happens while they're still alive and they're still awake. Let me see if I can find. Give me a second. I'm doing through this. Okay, you guys can see that. Okay. So an angiogram is basically it's just that it's a diagnostic procedure used to visually check for blood flow in the different blood vessels and stuff like that. It's kind of what they do, right?
What if your card offered you benefits, like a class pass or
Angiography is a procedure that involves checking of narrow, blocked, enlarged, or malformed arteries or veins in many regions of the body, including the brain, heart, abdomen, and legs. The images or readings resulting from this process is called an angiogram. Coronary angiography is a procedure that uses a special dye and X-rays to see the flow of blood
All right.
in the arteries of your heart.
So
This
basically, this
shows
is
the
what was happening,
extent
the
and
procedure that I
severity
was
of
being
any
told I
heart
needed to go
disease
through, right?
and can help you to figure out how well your heart is working.
And so while that's
With
playing,
this
I'm going to show
information,
you.
you and your doctor can talk through your treatment
See if I can
options
find a picture of
like
it.
angioplasty, bypass surgery, or medications. We will talk about these treatments in our future videos. Now let us see that how coronary angiography is performed. Coronary angiography is often done along with cardiac catheterization. An area of your body, the arm or groin, is cleaned and numbed with anesthetic. The cardiologist passes a thin hollow tube called a catheter through an artery. The doctor will use live X-ray pictures to carefully guide the catheter up into your heart and arteries. Once the catheter is in place, your doctor will inject a liquid dye through a catheter. The dye makes the blood flowing inside the blood vessels visible on an X-ray and shows any narrowed or blocked area in the blood vessels. The dye is later eliminated from your body through urine. You can expect the test to last half an hour, although it can sometimes take longer. After the angiography, you may need to stay in the hospital for several hours or overnight following the procedure. You may be asked to drink fluids to prevent dehydration and flush the dye from your kidneys. Thank you.
So that's basically an angiogram, and then what happened from there? I had the actual angioplasty done, which what they do then is they go in with a camera, not just the camera, but there's also they were doing the obviously dual procedure. When they were doing the angiogram, they obviously discovered there was blockage in the arteries, the main arteries of my heart. And so then they put in these sort of like catheters, not catheter. Is it catheters? No, it's not a catheter. It's stent. It's called a stent. My apologies. So basically, they're like these little mesh, some sort of material. I'm not sure the material that they're made from. That it's made from. Some either I would imagine it would be some sort of like a bio. Some sort of bios, allowed. But anyway, so they've gone in with these stents, and they've opened up. They've kind of dislodged the plaque that had built up around the arteries. And I can show you as soon as I can find this picture. I know I've got a picture somewhere. What my heart looked like at the time, before and after. If anybody, cares. I don't know. I don't know if you guys care or not. I was kind of, surprised that, this is the state of my life. This is where I had, kind of gotten to. And I don't know if, some people say it was based on smoking, because I was a smoker for 25 plus years. Or it could have been, elements of stress or whatever the case may be, whatever the reason, it was obviously a lifetime of things that had occurred to my life that basically had kind of built up into the arteries of my heart. So it kind of came to that point where it almost killed me. Almost killed me. And that's when you think about it, it's kind of you kind of realize you got to stop and start realizing life is just too short for this sort of thing, especially when you're not even 50 years old. I wasn't even 50 at the time. I wasn't even 50. So I had to take. I was forced to take 6 weeks off from work, and at the time, um, you know, I had a lot of time to reflect about me in general, life, everything, the relationship that I was in, the job that I was doing, myself, how I was looking after myself, and all sorts of things. And it kind of started. It was a hard time in the sense I had to focus. I had to really kind of start questioning myself and what I was doing and where I was going next. And um, at the time, I didn't have anybody. Shadows, good day, mate. No worries, my friend. Thank you for popping in. We're just having a MoChat. We're just talking about stuff in general. Self-awareness is the topic I'm talking about today. I appreciate you being here, man. I appreciate you. I thank you for being here. You are an amazing person, and you are missed. So just so you know, you are missed, my friend. And I wish you all the best, and I hope you are looking after yourself and your family. I'm assuming you're still with that lovely woman of yours. But if you don't reply, I completely understand, mate. Have a lovely rest. Enjoy your sleep. May you dream of wonderful things. We should be around the time frame that this happened. So I'm looking on my phone for these photos now because it's not on my computer. So if I have one here, I'll post it in Discord and then. Wow. Okay. Like it never happened. But it did. Anyways, all right. Let's talk about it. Okay. I don't see it anymore. I know I've got a copy of it somewhere. I've shared it with people before. Just gotta find where I put it. Anyways, we're back at it. Hey, Mama Bear. Hey, gorgeous. Thank you, Shadows. Thank you, mate. So we're just talking about self-awareness and how I came to become more self-aware of myself. And it was a life-changing experience of me having a heart attack that kind of put me in the momentum to start doing that. Um, and these are some of the things I kind of worked through, through my own sort of counseling. And I was seeing somebody at the time, I think counseling wise, to help me work through a few things. But through the experiences that I had through the Navy and other things, I kind of was self-diagnosing, which isn't always a great thing because you do kind of need somebody to help. I worked in an industry that obviously there was some level of supportive, like peer support. We had a lot of peer support where I worked at. So there was chances to talk to people for a bit of debriefing and debunking and whatever. Um, and it was a good opportunity for me to start, like I said, reflecting on things. My own stuff settled down. Love you guys tons. Talking about the chats games. No worries. Shadows, I completely understand, man. But take care of yourself, man. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a partner. Look forward to seeing more of you, man. Cannot wait. So as I'm talking about self-awareness and what kind of got me there, and what we started me questioning things. We'll wait for the chat. We'll wait for the ad to finish. No worries, mate. Take care of yourself. We'll talk to you soon. All right, are we back from the ads? Okay, cool. Yeah, as I was saying, talking about self-awareness. These are the kind of steps I kind of took them on my own. I mean, like I said, I've got a big whiteboard behind me of a lot of things that I started projecting and started working through my own sort of next steps. And I think that was kind of when this board kind of became generated. A lot of things that have occurred and dealt with in life that I've kind of have moved me and motivated me and whatnot has kind of come through, has all kind of made it onto this board. And although the board itself hasn't updated for some time, it's still a lot of things on there that I try to put into practice. Not always perfect with it, guys. Mind you, none of us are perfect, but I'd use it as a daily reminder. And some people do that. I think you guys, if you put vision boards, you do. Other people do that for goal oriented sort of ways of get themselves goal focused or goal oriented. If they do a vision board, you might say, if you're into, for example, fitness, and one girl could probably attest to this. If you have a vision of yourself being better version of yourself, i.e., in the physical format, you may have somebody you use as a reference. Maybe Dwayne the Rock Johnson could be your motivator, or let's say somebody in a female perspective, like some of the CrossFitters. It's been a while. One girl says, I've seen a CrossFit. I don't remember the names. But there's some pretty formidable female athletes out there that may motivate you. Maybe you want to be the next top model, and so somebody like Cyndi Lauper or Cyndi Lauper. Some of the better known models that are out there. They're your visions. You go. So you'd put pictures and photos of them on your fridge or on your wall or on your mirror or whatever. As long as it's a healthy. That was the whole key. I had to provide myself a bit of a help, make sure it was a healthy awareness. I don't have photos per se. I do have a few people that I kind of aspired to. People that I kind of had motivated me, that kind of their outlooks in life. Robin Williams was one of them. Amazing man. Not just a comedian, but he was just his views on life. And it's a sad thing that his mental health got the better of him. He had such an amazing outlook on life itself, and quite often when I watched a lot of his shows, when he first started on Happy Days, which is when he made his debut, and then he had a spin-off of his own show with Mork and Mindy and all that sort of stuff. And there was times when he would have his he would have his reflection at the end of the show with was it Zordon? Zordon? I can't remember the name of the entity he would report to, but it was always often to listen to him talk about human factors, and that sort of stuff. And then he would kind of give his own reflection. But quite often, I was what I didn't realize at the time, as a young viewer, but as I got older, I started to realize a lot of the stuff he did, he ad libbed. He kind of that was his comedic genius. It was the fact that he was left to his own devices to say, "Give us what you can give us, man. The script is yours." And I loved the fact that he kind of quite often came out with some amazing material, and watch what he does with the things he's been given. So there's a talent. He's a talent that's unlike his anywhere else in the world. Um, uh, Hugh Jackman, another one of mine that I kind of admire. His vision and his focus. His focus is unrelenting with what he does and his achievements. These are people that I aspire to, and Tom Hanks, another one. These are I don't idolize them. I don't believe in that word. They're I was raised in a Christian background, so not getting into religions or whatever. But at the same time, um, there's a factor that obviously we were brought in to believe that uh, we don't idolize, we don't put others above our true beliefs. So obviously I'm firm in my own belief system as it is, but there are people that I aspire to. These are the kind of people that emulate the sort of behaviors that I want to be known for. I want to be, oh God, to have just 1/10 of the talent of somebody like Hugh Jackman. The triple threat. He is the goat of triple threats. That man can do it all. He's just a crazy, crazy person. And the fact that he was so happily married for so long, his relationship has ended, unfortunately, which is a bit sad. But I think that's so commonplace these days that I grew up in an era where that wasn't as common. But different reasons. Things were happening for different reasons. This day and age, it's more common. It's easier to walk away. And I don't know if that's okay or not. Is that okay? I don't know. We'll talk about it later. Anyways, we're not talking about relationships here. We're talking about self-awareness and where I became more aware of who I am. And so it's the sort of things like, obviously when we put things in action, becoming more and more focused, it's understanding and becoming more in touch with my emotions. Like I feel the fact that when I get upset, I'm starting to become aware of that. When I get sad, I become aware of that. And I'm starting to associate parts of me that I need to focus on when that happens. If I'm upset, it could be because I'm tired, I'm cranky. A healthy relationship, yeah, and the most important relationship you have to have, though, one girl that I realized, is the relationship that we have with ourselves. It is the relationship we have with ourselves. That is the most important relationship to have, because if we don't have a healthy relationship with ourselves, we can't have a relationship. We're not and talking about this self-care. It is such an important thing. It's such an important thing. It is. It's a crazy thing to think about. We can easily blame others, but if we don't take accountability for our own selves and what we've done, let me see if I can find a copy of a. All right, this is the one. There's a poem I remember that stands out to me. I don't know if I can find it. Not the one. Not the one. I don't want pictures, images. I want a just the one. Nope, that's not the one. There it is. This is the one. And I'll read this out loud, guys, so you guys can hear it. We don't know the actual author of this. I don't know who this Del Wimbrow is, but this was an anonymous. My understanding from when I first came across this poem was it was an anonymous poem that was written on the wall of a prison cell. Saturn, g'day, matey. How are you? What's up, Bubba? Good to see you, mate. And so just time. It was very profound to me at the time, and I think obviously things happen when we discover these sorts of things. They happen at a time when you probably need them the most. So this one came across at the time when I needed to see it, and it's something that's always resonated. It's always been there. I don't know it word for word, and I wish I probably need to memorize this because it does. It hits me in a way that that and this is when you start realizing self-awareness. So, the man in the mirror. When you get all you want and you struggle for self, and the world makes you cling for a day, then go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what the man has to say. For it isn't your mother, your father, or wife whose judgment upon you must pass, but the man whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. He's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you right to the end. And you've passed your most difficult test if the man in the glass is your friend. You may be like Jack Horner and chisel a plum and think you're a wonderful guy, but the man in the glass says you're only a bum if you can't look him straight in the eye. You can fool the whole world down the highway of years, and take pats on the back as you pass. But your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass. And that poem is such it was so profound to me at the time. And it's right. And you don't have to physically look into a mirror to do this. However, it's a good practice. Aside from having your vision board, aside from having, the other things that we kind of keep ourselves motivated and staying focused, it's also, it's being able to do self-reflection internally. You can sit down through meditation, through whatever practices you can utilize, whether it be on a walk or deliberate, sitting on your backside, in tears. It's and as you get older, there's a bigger picture to look at. We sit down and we reflect on our lives and what we've done and how we've, what have we? Some of us care enough about what sort of impacts we've had. And I don't think I've ever done anything wrong by a person. I can't recall that I have. And it's a beautiful poem, Saturn. It's such a beautiful poem. And it's it kind of stopped me and maybe stopped rethinking things. I'm talking about how I had my heart attack at 47, and it started to make me realize, becoming more self-aware of who I am and where I'm going next and what I'm doing with my life. And I was kind of put in a position where I kind of really had to stop and think. And by this stage, all of the kids I didn't have any of the kids with me. They were all kind of split between their mothers and whatever. Had the house to myself with my menagerie of animals. Dexter was with me, of course. God bless him. I miss him. I miss him so much. And I had a couple of kitty cats, and I had fish tanks and all sorts of stuff at the time. And yeah, but these are the things you're talking about. Talking about emotions and how we feel and become more aware of these sorts of things, and albeit without any sort of life gets in the way. And that's the thing is like sometimes I'll find like at work. For those that don't know, I work in an industry. I work in a kind of a convenience store, for lack of a better way of putting it. I work as a convenience store clerk, evening shifts, which brings its own sort of client base. Most of them are pretty friendly. Again, I've got a lot of really, really interesting regulars that come through. We have chats and talk about from all different walks of life. I have young people, old people, everybody in between. And there's really, really awesome interactions with these people because you hear their stories, and it's nice to hear I love hearing people's stories. So I've got a couple young fellas that come in, usually from the gym, and they're about the same age as my youngest. So it makes me feel closer to him because he's not around. So I got these guys, and we talk and we chat, and I get to kind of, spend my words of wisdom upon them. Hopefully they'll pick up on it because I watch what they do, and I remember being in their shoes, and although I was never as fit as most of those little buggers are. I am slightly jealous of the fact that they are such fit little Frodos. Same with my youngest. He's just got that sort of natural fitness. I never had that sort of natural fitness. So I've always been a little pudgy. So, but that's fun. Even when I was CrossFitting, I never could get a washboard. I've never seen a washboard stomach on myself at all. I had to paint one on. There's a photo of me floating somewhere of me throwing a pretend washboard on my gut, just for the giggles. But yeah, but it's nice to have that sort of stuff, and so and occasionally you get a challenge. Like I was saying, you get a challenge if somebody comes in, you get somebody with a behavior that's different, and how I respond to them. So, and I'm realizing that I can reflect back. It's hard to do it at the time because some things just don't give you a chance to stop to a moment to reflect, but you can definitely do it after the fact. And I found that do that quite often. I'll stop afterwards. Like I had a customer came in, and one of the biggest things, obviously, with the convenience store situation is we have to deal with people who drive off. Now, I don't know if the states have that issue because a lot of the pumps now are pay at the pump sort of thing. People put in their cards, their bank cards, get the details, blah blah blah, off you go. I don't know if anybody actually pays in the store anymore in the states, but they do that here quite often. So it's you pay at the pump, and you fill up your car, and you come in and you pay for it, sort of thing. Pay at the pump is something that's very hard that doesn't happen very often. You can do it through an app, but very few people actually utilize that, which kind of sucks. So we're obviously subject to people who like to pump and run. So they'll fill up the car with $100 worth of fuel and then see ya, drive off. And quite often they're using stolen plates, or they're using improper plates or whatever. So we kind of have to get conditioned to watch for signs that may give us a potential risk. Thankfully, we've got a database now that we can draw upon, and check just to make sure, like if the registration to the vehicle is accurate, or if it's been pinged for drive off from another facility. Excuse me while I sip on my mocha here. So, and my eyesight's not the best, so I'm constantly looking at the forecourt where all the cars are parking. And Tuesdays are terrible as far as This happened on Monday though. I have to apologize. It wasn't as busy, but it happened just as my shift started. And this beat up old work vehicle, and which is kind of one of the more common vehicles we see with drive offs. Pulled up, and it had the front tags on the car, the license plates were damaged and heavily faded. So I did my best to make out what the registration was on the vehicle, and I went and ran it through my database. And of course, what I thought I saw, I put into the database, didn't match the vehicle. So I basically said, well, all right, you're going to need to prepay. So the passenger came in, and I said, hey, your mate's going to have to prepay his vehicle for his fuel. And of course, the guy's come in, and he's left the pump plugged into his vehicle unattended. And he's come in, and of course he's having an issue. The fact that I've asked him to prepay, and I said, all right, well, this is the reason why is because based on my database, your tags don't match your vehicle. And of course he protested that and that sort of stuff. And then as we looked further investigated, he kind of said, these are my tag numbers. And I realized, because of where the damage to the tag was and the fading of the numbers and letters, of course he knew his registration. It's his registration. He knew it by heart. I know my registrations in my car without having to be there. So if it was ever a question, I can say, no, this is my registration. So anyways, and I obviously ask you hundreds a day. And then so, we corrected this. He said, this is the actual registration. So I went and ran it again. So, okay, look, sorry, no worries, man. Let's go and get it sorted then. And of course, by this stage, he's already agitated. He's angry. He's upset. And I'm just trying to say, look, man, I'm just trying to do my job. And of course, he then turns to me and starts berating me and trying to, and which is interesting in an industry where you're dealing with when you're dealing with people, you have to be very aware of the fact that it's easy. Maybe, I don't know. I know that some of my colleagues would just they would bow down and be, oh, so sorry, so sorry, so sorry. I'm not that sort of person. Anybody that knows me, if I've done something wrong, I'll apologize and we'll move on. I'm not going to sit there and let you give you the opportunity just to beat me up because I'm sorry. Let's fix this. And he chose to stay angry. So, but I didn't. And I tried to explain to him, so look, man, I do apologize. Your tags are not readable from my perspective. And I did the best I could. And he just continued on. And then he went out, he threw the money at me. He paid for it. But then he went to the audacity, which I kind of giggled at. He went to the next step of coming back into the store after he's pumped his fuel. And he started again to reiterate what I had done wrong, to recap it all. And I'm thinking, and then he was demanding a $10 extra for his inconvenience and all this other stuff. And I'm like, it ain't gonna happen. That's not how it works, man. I've got a job to do. Unfortunately, you were casualty of war. It is what it is, and I do apologize. And but he just wanted to be an absolute. Of course, he was the one put out on it, but he was the one that went to that extra effort. I'm like, you didn't have to come back into the store, man. You could just gone on. That's by all means. You don't like the service. There's the competitor down the road, just a kilometer, man. You're more than welcome to go get your fuel from somewhere else. If you can't understand the role that I have to do, that's completely understandable. But I stopped and reflected on if I did anything wrong and how I managed that. Other than the fact that I'm not one that normally in a service industry where I guess waiters and waitresses and that sort of industry where you work for your tips. You tend to, I don't know how far people would allow themselves to be treated. I tend to not have that ability. I don't have that sort of flexibility as I used to maybe 20 years ago. I don't know. Nowadays, I'm not rigid, but I'm pliable enough to a point where, okay, I accept this, but then there's a point where I don't accept this. This is your behavior. Like, yeah, time to go. Out you go, man. You're scaring the customers. But anyways, so I stopped and reflected on how I managed that situation. And of course, it's a frustration for me when I start to realize, and I'm trying not to stereotype people. I'm trying not to put people in certain categories. We saw that happen after 9/11, where everybody said anybody of a brown skin color became suspect immediately. We were so hurt and unexpected, but I know that's probably a very sore point, but very valid thing that occurred with a lot of us. And so, in the industry that I work in too, we have certain people we don't necessarily put them in that category, but we're naturally we look at certain things. Like I look for vehicles, I watch behaviors. how somebody gets out and is dressed, it can make a huge difference. You know, if they get out and they're looking kind of shady, they're trying to hide their faces or whatever, that kind of gives us some indications. Or if I had one guy come in and he pulled up to the Bowser and he kind of stopped, but then he did another lap around and pulled up to the same Bowser again. And I'm thinking, okay, that's kind of weird. So the minute I ran his plate, sure enough, he was definitely, he definitely had done a runner, and he didn't like the fact that I'd pulled him up on it. So, you know, and so he wanted to have a challenge with me, and he was a young fellow. He was threatening to jump the counter and whatever. Thank you, Solid. Yeah, I'm all right today, mate. I'm all right today. Thank you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're not working yourself too hard. I'm still waiting to see if you're going to get that Christmas back done or not. But yeah. So, but that was all in his behavior, and I just basically at the end of the day just told him that you can take your business elsewhere. But again, reflecting on these sorts of things after the fact, and you know, it's hard to do it at the time, but it's something that you learn to do on a more regular basis. If you are inclined, and I don't say, I'm not telling everybody, and this is, again, I'm not a counselor. I don't have. Yeah, no, exactly right, one girl. You should, yeah, and your gut instincts, you know, they've gotten me this far in life, you know, and I'm grateful, you know, for being given the life that I've been given to this point. And so, you know, there's a couple of times where I wouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here, and I've managed to still be here. So, but again, self-reflection happens usually after something's happened. You know, for me, it was a heart attack. There was, you know, the ending of a relationship. These things that kind of bring us the time for self-reflection are usually done in the aftermath. And something that I have not done as often as I'd like to, and something that I'm working towards, is trying to do it on a more regular basis. And as I've gotten older and become more aware of that, I start to realize I am doing it more regularly. I'm just like you, Elder. No, oh really? That's awesome. Well, I feel complete now, Saturn. Thank you very much. This year and the year before, I kind of decided I was going to make it a year of gratitude, and that was being grateful. You know, I've seen a friend of mine post things on Instagram, and finding something to be post grateful, something being grateful every day. And you're right, and it's something that I wanted to do, become more aware of this year and the year before. Is that becoming more grateful in the things in my life, things that I have, things that are outside of my control I can do. I just realized there's nothing I can do about it. But what I have, what I'm grateful for, is I still have my health. I still have a roof over my head. I have a job. I have food in my belly. You know, I have some amazing, beautiful children. You know, I'm grateful for a lot of things, and it doesn't have to be anything big or special. Like, I'm grateful that I have a system, a computer set up to sit down and talk to amazing people. And these are things that are, yeah. I think it's like even like that, Saturn. We talk about fears, and I know you've mentioned to me about things like this. And this is the moments when we can actually face those fears. These are the moments where we take the time, and that's what I'm trying to say. Is like it's time to sit down and give ourselves an opportunity. I think quite often we end up with a card that comes up quite more often than people realize. Of all the cards, when I do these card readings for people, the kiwi. Little kiwi bird from New Zealand. It basically tells you to go on a meditative walk for the next week. Now, you don't have to do that every day, but like I do recommend, you know, if you are actively walking, or if you're, you know, on a treadmill, or you give yourself whatever some time, I would say that's the time to kind of throw your mind, let your body do what it does autonomously. You know, walking, you can walk without thinking. You don't have to think left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. You know, your body's going to do it automatically. Just kind of point your nose in a direction and let the body do its thing. And that's the time, like I spend for the last 19 days now. I have purposely made this month a month of MOvember, and I took on the challenge, as I've said before, of doing 60 Ks in 30 days. Let me see what my current stands are. Anybody that's following me in my Discord, you'll see. I'll do the math real quick. Let's do the math, shall we? Calculator. How do you spell calculator? There we go. 2.25 plus 2.24 plus 2.22 plus 2.26 plus 2.22 plus 2.22 plus 2.24 plus 2.18 plus 2.4 plus 2.29 plus 2.11 plus 2.49 plus 2.11 1.96 1.61 plus 4 plus 1.03 plus 1.03. Okay. So we are currently sitting at no worries, thanks, one girl. Currently sitting at 35.75 Ks. Minus 60. So I've got 24.25 Ks left. We're on the 19th of the month. So if I'm doing on average 2.2, was it 2.22? I think is my current average. 2.22. All right. All right. So was it? We got how many days? 11 days left. Is that right? Divided by 11. All right. So I'm on track. So as long as I keep walking, I'll be on track. I'll be right on track. So yep. And I forgot where I was going with that. But I was basically every day that I get out and I go and walk, I try to be aware of what's happening. And these are the things like for me, physically, it's a physical awareness. Like I said, I don't think about what left foot, right foot, left foot. I'm thinking about, how's my body feeling today? Am I feeling sore? Am I feeling tight? A couple of days, my knees felt tight, my hips felt tight. Today was better. I usually get a bit of a pain in my left calf, or maybe sometimes my right calf. I get a bit of a burning sensation. So obviously they're kind of getting a bit of a strain. Or sometimes I'll get a burning sensation in the foot where it feels like it's being ripped apart. But that's just again opening up these muscles and joints that haven't been used for a long time, and just becoming more self-aware. So these are moments where we have an opportunity to kind of meditate. If you want to sit down and meditate, there's the other option. Sitting down, listening to either to nature, closing your eyes and focusing on clearing your head. So let's look at a moment. So if we take a moment, we could do this together if you guys want to. But if you do stuff like a self-reflection type of medication, make sure we focus on ourselves, our thoughts, our feelings, behaviors without judgment. And this practice can kind of cultivate a lot more inner peace, self-awareness. And this is the part that kind of struck me the most. As I become more aware of these sorts of things, I became more comfortable in my own skin. If that makes any sense. Like these questions do pop into my head when I'm walking. Like, what's my current emotion? How am I feeling? Not just physically, emotionally as well. I go through that as well. Like, I'll think about things. Um, I try to think about what's happening in my world. Um, Sometimes I think about nothing at all, which is quite easy for most guys. um, Body scan meditation, I do that. Like, that's what I do mostly when I'm walking. Mindful breathing, these sorts of things. But if you guys want to indulge me for a few minutes, let's go and do let's do a quick meditation real quick.
What if you
We're
could
gonna
send
skip
money
this.
overseas?
Hi, it's Eve here. Welcome to this short guided exercise
It
designed
only
to
takes
give
5
you a
minutes, guys. So
moment to
let's
yourself
get into it. Let's just
because you and your well-being matters. And it can be really hard to make time for ourselves. There are always so many competing priorities, and that is especially true if we're taking care of others, whether that's as a parent or caring for an elderly or sick family member. Or perhaps you just need to step back from work or to take a break from your studies. It is all too easy to get lost in all the obligations that we have. So my intention with this exercise is to help cultivate some space that is just for you. Your self-care time is just as important as everyone else's. And if you are taking time to nurture yourself, it means that you can then show up for those around you in a more meaningful and compassionate way. Okay, let's take a moment to get settled, whether you're sitting down or lying down, knowing that this time is for you. So allowing your shoulders to soften, the hands to just rest in your lap or down by your sides. Closing the eyes if that feels right for you, or adopting a soft downward gaze. And taking a couple of nice big deep breaths, breathing in through the nose and then out through the mouth. And with each inhalation, that sense of breathing in space for yourself. And with each exhalation, that sense of letting go of whatever is not serving you. And allowing your breathing to return to its natural rate and rhythm in and out of the nose. Connecting in with the physical points of contact, the body pressing down into the seat, and perhaps offering the following kind phrase to yourself. And you can adapt it however you like. You deserve this time. You matter, and so does your well-being. It is as if you are talking to a friend, being kind and gentle. So just taking a moment with that now. So, guiding your attention to rest with the breath, just tracking the sensation of breathing and knowing that the mind will wander off, perhaps get caught up in the long to-do list, responsibilities. It's okay, we can meet it with kindness, even saying, thank you, but not right now, and coming back to the breath. So noticing when the mind wanders, thank you, but not right now, and gently coming back to the breath. So coming back to the physical points of contact, the body in the seat, that sense of being held and supported. Perhaps noticing sounds around you, opening the eyes if you had them closed, and noticing how it feels to have given yourself 5 minutes. 5 minutes just for you, to pause and to nurture the mind and body. And I invite you to take with you your kind phrase, perhaps putting it on a post-it note or somewhere you can see it, to remind yourself that your well-being matters. Time for you is really important. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you back here soon.
All right, guys. So little things like this, you can find them all over the web. Plenty of little opportunities to work on little meditations and so forth and so on. So I've always found that it was always easy for me to be able to go to these sorts of when I wanted to become more mindful and be aware of my emotions. It was easy to find these sort of meditations, and it was easy to find them for me. The fact that as far as the thought processes on the procedures and how it all works, it was easy for me to let somebody else take control, if that makes any sense. Obviously it's a scripted uh, scripted video, which makes it easier, and then somebody else is doing it for me. Yeah, good. And you know the thing is, like Saturn, I think it's a practice that as we get older we find quite helpful, but something that a lot of young people aren't really given to. I don't know culturally. I know that certain cultures, they take the moment, like I think it's Chinese cultures or something like that. They take the moment where they could collectively work together. And I know I've seen movies and scenes where you see them out there in the courtyard and they're doing the Tai Chi. They're all working through this sort of meditative, movements of physical. And I always found that in that sense, if we had more of that in our modern age life, control, I think we'd probably find that we'd have fewer mental health issues. We've gone into an age, and this is me going to rant for a second. We've gone into an age where we have spared the rod and spoiled the child. That was an old saying we used to say growing up in our household. Obviously, if we've stepped out of line as a child, you know, we obviously would receive punishment, usually of a corporal type, which is usually something like a spanking with a belt, or as we call it in the South, you get a switch. Switch being that of a lightweight branch from a nearby tree or bush. Um, a paddling, those sorts of things, and so we grew up in a generation where, as children we were seen and not heard, because the minute we got heard, the minute the switches and the paddlings would begin. So we learned to keep our mouths shut. Just do respect your elders and that sort of stuff. And all of a sudden we got to an era where people were saying, and right, and look, and I'm not, again, I'm not here debating. I'm not here to debate. But there was a time when, as life got more complicated, we found the dynamics of households become more complicated. The frustrations and all that sort of stuff become more complicated. The pressures of economics, living in a house without having to have more than one income, or the breadwinner of the household had to work harder and longer hours, thereby exhausting themselves and not having any energy left for the family when they got home, or even for their own relationship with their partner, which takes its toll. And it after a while we see the breakdowns of marriages, we see the breakdowns of relationships, we see the breakdowns of communications, because people aren't regulating themselves. They're not becoming self-aware. They're not allowing themselves to take care of themselves. Self-care, self-awareness, third space, as we say here. When you go that between work and home, is being able to separate the two things. There was no such thing. There was no such thing for my father in our household. They had both been in previous relationships with my parents, and I don't know that neither of them ever told me, none of that was in my business, of what happened in their previous relationships, while they broke down. But all I know is I was the result of a relationship that lasted 20 plus years. But I remember a majority of that as a kid growing up, and them living in separate rooms, and obviously the fights and that sort of stuff that would take its toll. But I never thought my dad was a bad man. I just I think my father was just a man who was just trying to survive and didn't have the capacity and understanding of self-care. Looking after himself in the sense that he needed to become more aware of his health and that sort of thing. So he ended up become he quit smoking, which was something he did probably when I was very, very young. I know he was in his mid-30s when he quit smoking. But then he leaned more into the whole obesity side of things. So he became a bit of a larger man, and then eventually became diabetic. But he didn't take care of himself as he should have, and obviously after many years of neglect, he ended up he lived to be, how old? I think he had just turned 76 when he passed away, but not without its own complications toward the end. So that was all because of not looking after himself, self-awareness. He wasn't self-aware enough. But I don't think he had the ability. I don't think he had the capacity. I don't think it was something that was practiced or talked about. And that's why it's important. So I look at these sorts of things, and I see like what happened to my father. And I say that because genetically we are close to our parents. We have to look at the genetic disposition. And there's condition as well, but there's also the genetic makeup. When we look at people about cancer, and so cancer is usually has a genetic marker. Usually somebody in the family there's a history of it. So cancer does happen outside of that marker. Don't get me wrong. But generally, if somebody has cancer, it's usually through a genetic marker of some sort. My grandmother on my father's side lived to be 97 years old, smoked most of her life, had diabetes. She had pretty much everything, but she lived a healthy life for the most part. Doctors couldn't find anything faulted of her at the end of it all. 97. And then there's people who don't smoke a day in their life and die from lung cancer. So it's a very unfortunate thing. But being back getting self-awareness, it's important. And I think that was things that I started to realize after my heart attack, that I became more aware of me, and as a result, I'm starting to kind of pay attention. Now, it's not easy. It's not easy. None of this is easy. This whole journey's been, it's had its ups and downs and mistakes and that sort of thing. And that's the thing, is like, when I make a mistake and try to do the right thing by me, um, it's a time to reflect. I go back and fix it, keep moving forward. So yeah. But the thing is, it's changing your attitude, getting rid of the diaphragm, or sorry, getting rid of the sort of um, vocabulary like I can't, or it's too hard. Um, putting your way of thinking, of saying things where it lays blame on others. These are things that I avoid. I've learned to avoid from saying. So I find things that, if I can't do it, it's only because it's a challenge. Okay, so this is challenging for me. Now I can either choose to pursue to work with it, or I can choose to abandon it. If it's worth me, giving, and if it serves me, then I'll give it the time and effort, and I'll research, do whatever I need to do to fix that. If it's not worth my time, if it doesn't serve me anything, yep. A lady O's smile, exactly. And that's funny. Like and funny you saying that, son. It's like, the minute I start freeing myself, and I do realize, and I say the word freeing because it's the minute you become more self-aware, you become more open to seeing things on a much clearer perspective. Rid yourself of all that gunk that kind of clogs up your arteries, of all that crap that has kind of settled on our thought processes, the all the soot and the crap that we had no need of carrying with us, dusting it off and just kind of taking a fresh look. And the minute you see a smile on somebody, like I find that quite often at work, I'll get somebody to come in and I can't help myself but comment, what a beautiful smile you have, or what a gorgeous aura. Like, you can notice, like, sometimes people just have this sort of energy that just amazes me. Like, I don't hesitate. And sometimes customers are taken aback by it, but I try to say it without sounding creepy. So imagine sometimes it probably does, but for the most part, I try to spin a positive yarn on people of all times, and then but I don't pick just any particular people. Like, obviously, they have to be something about them. Like, I've got one young fella that comes in. He's a spitting image of Lionel Richie, a young version of Lionel Richie. He's got the curly hair. He's got that beautiful creamy colored skin. He's got the same kind of gorgeous smile that Lionel Richie has. And I call him a young Lionel Richie, and he looks at me like, because he's obviously too young to understand the genre. But I said, mate, look him up. I said, look up this guy. I said, you'd be surprised. You'd be like looking in the mirror. Seriously. He's like, this is your dad, man. But yeah, things like that. Or people might, who did I see the other day? There was somebody that kind of came across into my store. Larry Bird, a young fella, come in the other day. He was probably all about 6'7", 6'5", and he had the same sort of blonde hair and same mustache and same sort of look that Larry Bird. And I was like, hey, man, you're a spitting image of Larry Bird. And the kid's like, huh? I said, you've never heard of Larry Bird? He said, he used to play for the Celtics. He's a white fella. He said, but he had the same sort of stats as LeBron James and all the other big guys. I said, you should go look him up. He's a good guy. He's an amazing player of his day, But I do that to a lot of people, and they kind of look at me sometimes funny, but sometimes appreciative as well. I think that's kind of cool. So it's nice. It's funny. I had a young girl come through a couple weeks ago, and I won't forget. She had this. So obviously, when you're standing at the counter and you're kind of trapped, you get the smells of people. Can I get it, share? Yeah, no, please, by all means, I'd like for you to share. Take your time. While you're working on, I'll finish my story with the girl. She came in with this, and you notice, like, I noticed smells a lot. Obviously, you can't help it. Sometimes you get people that come in and just like you can tell, like, dude, take a shower. Yeah, go take a shower, please. Just coming from the gym, or there's got a sort of natural, smell. But quite often, obviously, I pick up people who, obviously, some of the ladies that come in with some lovely, whatever the flavor perfume it is at the time. There's been a lot of like a cotton candy sort of smell. I don't know whose brand that one is, but that was been running. But this one girl came in and it had a sort of like a nostalgic smell, very nostalgic in the sense that it almost reminded me. And I said this, and I could tell that she was a bit offended by it. So my dad owned a Gulf station in Connecticut, and I pumped gas from 7 years until 14 when he died in a car accident. My childhood was greeting people with happiness. After 14, I had none to share. It took an ischemic stroke at 57 to finally see others meant love to me, because my dad was a very compassionate person and loved people. And that's thank you for sharing that, Saturn. I appreciate that. As I said, it's these sorts of things that happens. These friends here are my way of saying sorry I ignored you for so long. I love you without any hidden agendas, because you are just like me, happy to be with, along with smile, because we do, Saturn, we do. And again, I appreciate you sharing that with me. And as I was saying before, it was these sort of traumatic events that have occurred in our lives that can change how we treat people, how we treat ourselves. And I said at the beginning of all this, the most important relationship to look after is the relationship we have with ourselves. Learning to love ourselves, learning to forgive ourselves, learning to embrace ourselves, learning to know that when I'm sad, if I'm sad, there's a reason why I'm sad. If I'm upset, there's probably a reason why I'm upset. And so I have to take my time. I have to take a moment or two to look inside myself and try to find out why. Why am I feeling this way? Because it's not ideal. And I questioned this, and I just thought to myself, well, why do I not question why am I happy? Well, why would you question yourself why am I happy? You can, and it's not saying you don't do that. You can do that as well. But because if I'm content, if I've got everything I need to survive, I'm content. I'm happy. I'm satisfied. And that's okay to be that way. If I'm sad, why am I sad? I miss my puppy. I miss my kids. I miss the touch of another human being. It's things like that these are things that happen, and they can if they're left unattended or unaddressed, they can kind of spin off, become, they can bleed into our lives. And I've worked really hard to not let that happen. And I found that what happened with me, because of childhood traumas and things that occurred in my lifetime, Saturn, albeit I didn't lose my father at 14. I was the youngest of 5 kids, growing up in a household of an absent father, a mother who, God bless, did the best she could as well. She loved us and looked after us. But obviously, the strained relationship between my mother and my father affected her life and her ability to do the things she needed to do. So quite often we were left to our own devices, doing our own things, and which is not a bad thing. Growing up in our day and age, get on your bicycles and off you go. And we learned to live life on the back of a two-wheel vehicle, hanging out with our mates in the woods, and being silly and doing stupid things like jumping ditches and makeshift ramps, and playing games like Red Rover or what have you. As kids, we had no care in the world. We didn't think about that sort of things. All we cared about is you know, make sure we got home before the lights went out. You know, that we got home by the time dinner was on the table. You know, we as kids, we didn't care. We didn't think about the struggles that our parents were going through. We didn't think about it. It wasn't really in our wheelhouse to think about. So, yeah, but as we gotten older, you know, when I went to university, I went to college and stuff, and I started realizing, you know, I had bills to pay. Whew, that was different, you know. Car that would break down and I couldn't go to work, you know. Or I joined the National Guard just out of high school, you know. Because I didn't at the time I didn't want to go full time military. I just wanted a part time. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to be a doctor. I look back now thinking, why did I want to be a doctor? I didn't have the scores. I did well in school. I wasn't bad in school. I have 3.8 GPA, and which isn't great, which is good. I mean, 4.0s, they're the ones that go off to become doctors and physicists and all that sort of stuff. 3.8, nah, I'm above average. I did all right at school. Dr. Elder sounds good enough. Yeah. Look, I do contemplate on going back and getting my degree in counseling and that sort of stuff. But I know I think my biggest issue nowadays, fellows, is my focus. I struggle to maintain focus. As you guys see in my gameplay, quite often I can easily get squirreled away. So it's harder. I'm finding it harder just to focus. And so to me to sit down and complete a course, it's something that to me is as important as counseling. I think I would struggle. So I kind of revert to something like this where I can just kind of be here to chat and talk about things. And, you know, again, disclosures, I'm not a counselor. I'm not a doctor. I don't have certificates. I don't have qualifications other than this life experience. This is me. And I, out of the 5 kids, for whatever reason, I was always the one that the family came to. All my siblings came to me when they had issues. They needed somebody to vent or chat to or whatever. They'd come to me. I don't know why, but it kind of just happened growing up. So, but yeah. So that was kind of how things are. But becoming self-aware is becoming such an important tool now that I stopped to make myself more aware of who I am, and I am more free to enjoy the things around me. I feel so much more awake and alive in the sense that I can now, as I was saying, you know, enjoy the smells of pretty girls that come into the store with whatever the flavor of the month of the perfumes that are out there, or the yarn with a nice yarn / chat with the nice young fellas that are coming in from the gym at the same age as my youngest. So it's like some of them is like being in touch with him, you know. Or you know, even you know, I think one of the nicest things I've had was one of my regulars came in and told me that I was one of the I was their favorite employee of all the staff in the neighborhood. Everybody loved coming and having a chat to me, and you know, whatever. So it was nice to hear that sort of feedback, and it was unwarranted. I didn't ask for it. It was just kind of told, you know, and that was good. I'm sounding creepy sometimes. Hey, it's never my intention, mate. So if that's something that sounds creepy, that's kind of, maybe you need to do some self-reflecting yourself. But yeah, look, need to smell the roses outside. Stop and take accountability or take account into what's around you. You know, the flowers, the smells, the sounds. No roses for Mama Bear. She's allergic. I'll get you some frangipanis, Mama Bear. You'll like the frangipanis. Frangipanis and gardenias. I don't mind the nice, beautiful smell of a gardenia. Or honeysuckles. Oh. Can you handle the honeysuckles, Mama? Do you get the honeysuckles up in your way? I used to love the smell of the honeysuckles when they come around. Oh my God, it smells so good. You just go. I'm glad. Thank you very much, Saturn, for sharing that with me. I really appreciate that, and sharing it here as well. That took a lot of trust, and I do appreciate you, mate. Thank you for doing that. It means a lot. And that's the sort of thing. That's kind of why I'm here. That's why I'm doing this at the moment, because I want the people to feel comfortable enough to know that you guys are here. There's no judgment here at all. We all have our own sort of life experiences, and that mold us and make us who we are today. And the majority of the viewers that I have here are we're talking about people that are their 30s and 40s and plus. This is not a venue or a platform that 15, 16-year-olds, that stick around. This is the older generation, our Gen Xers and stuff. And it's nice to have this platform that we can be more in touch. By all means, we're the ones that created it. Might as well utilize it to what it's meant for, right? Sunflowers are beautiful. My first wife used to wear the perfume sunflowers. I used to love the smell. Yeah, and it was her favorite flower too. I do like the sunflowers. I think they're a gorgeous flower. And the seeds, you can always eat the seeds. They serve a lot of purposes. They're not just pretty to look at. Right. Don't judge me. When you can grow a mow like mine, then you can judge me, all right? Until then, you can't judge me. You're not allowed to judge me, especially during MOvember. Rachie, good day, mate. How are you, love? Good to see you. But I've got one more week of this, and I'm open to whatever. If you guys have any ideas of what we want to talk about on our last week. Now, obviously, holidays. I think we got the holidays coming up. You guys have Thanksgiving next week in the US. So there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be here, there, everywhere. Hopefully you guys can join me. We'll still have a chat. We'll talk about holidays and how the holidays have affected us, and we can share our memories of our favorite holiday. And it doesn't have to be a Christian holiday. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Solo. We're just talking about holidays and or events that occur to bring families together. Obviously in Mexico they don't celebrate Thanksgiving. It's an American thing. See, they don't celebrate Thanksgiving here for obvious reasons. Canada has their own sort of Thanksgiving, which is celebrated differently. So it's just, we'll talk about, I think next week we'll talk about holidays and how they affect us. And so the sort of pressures that kind of come upon us during that period, and what the expectations are on our end, how we're meant to perform, are there any sort of stresses that go with that? Are we nervous, or can we, saying, how do we get through that sort of stuff? So holidays we'll talk about next week. And again, I'm encouraged to whoever, if you guys are welcome to come in, I have a call in. You can call in if you want. We can have a chat online on air for everybody else to hear and chat and be a part of. And I appreciate that, guys. So with that all being said, I am coming up to that point where now we kind of want to wrap things up, because this is kind of what I wanted to. Yeah, and then of course we've got Hanukkah for the Jewish community. Of course, it's coming up around the corner. So, we want to make sure we embrace everybody and celebrate everybody. So, but thank you guys. I want to thank you guys for being here for me today. Talking about self-awareness, the things that I've kind of worked through, what happened in my life, what kind of got me to become more aware of me needing to become more aware, and how it's freed me in the sense that, it has allowed me to have a more fulfilling environment, in the sense that I'm more aware of things around me. The more I'm aware of myself, the more I'm aware of the things around me, which has been a blessing in my life. And I appreciate that, guys. So thank you guys for sharing that with me today. I really do mean that means a lot to me, guys. You guys are absolutely amazing and awesome. And I appreciate you guys with me on this journey. I am on track with my walks. Thank you guys for being a part of that. And you guys are amazing and wonderful. And I cannot express to you guys how grateful I am to have each and every one of you. You guys mean the absolute world to me. So let's go and see who we're going to rate out to somebody today. I want to rate out to PR Baker today. She's one of my favorite giggles. I love a giggle. You cannot go wrong with somebody with a gorgeous giggle. She has an amazing and infectious giggle. So let's go give PR Baker some love. Thank you so much, Mama Bear, for doing that. we are going to rate out before that ad starts. So let's go rate out now. Thank you guys again so much for hanging out with me today. PR Baker is playing alongside Orange Dugong. If you guys don't know these guys by now, they're a lot of fun. They work together, and they're a good partnership. These two, a little bit of mayhem and chaos, and we want to see more of it. So let's go over there, give them some love and support. If you haven't followed them, guys, make sure you give them a follow. They are definitely worth the time and effort. And Orange is an amazing builder. Does big stuff that he's experienced in his life and around the world. And Baker is his favorite toy that works with her. That works with him, and she's an amazing person. She like I said, the most infectious giggle. So guys, until next time, please make sure you remember to look after yourselves, guys. Self-care is so important. It's not selfish. Until next time, guys, I love your faces. It's bye for now, but not forever. You are the lights of my darkness, and I'll be the same there for you. Until then, take care, you guys. We will see you then. Bye.